Today's video is all about GDPR and what it might mean for you and your business. So if you're still thinking about it, if you're feeling unsure or overwhelmed, stick around. This one's for you. Hey, Mike Blissett here, founder of Speak Like a Pro Online. And yeah, it's gonna happen. GDPR is coming up on the 25th of May. And if you're like me, then this means something for your business. So if you're a coach, if you're a consultant, if you're a trainer, if you're a speaker, if you have an online or an offline business and you deal with people, chances are this applies to you. So in today's video, I'm just going to walk you through kind of how I've been working through GDPR and aiming to become GDPR compliant within my business. Now, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not an attorney. This is just my take on it, what I've been making sense on, and I've been taking a course with an attorney, with a US attorney, to help me with that. So I'm just going to be sharing, as I say, my kind of layman's term view on what GDPR means for me, and hopefully that is going to make some sense and just make it maybe a little bit less scary for you. Because here's the thing, I think GDPR is a good thing. I think the internet has evolved kind of organically since it was kind of created in the kind of early mid-90s, and for the most part it runs really nicely. But as we've seen in the press and in the news over the last year or so, data can also be misused and used in a way that is not necessarily in such a good way. And so I think the EU, which are the body that came up with the GDPR, they spent a couple of years just looking at if there were some ground rules of how people did and didn't use people's personal data, then that would create like a benchmark, that would create I think a watershed and how information is used. And just to say, even though this is an EU regulation, of course it applies to every company and every organization in the world who does business with people who are in the EU. So that's why it's gained so much attention from far and wide, of course in the EU, but equally further afield with Google, with Apple, with Amazon. You know, everybody is looking at this. Facebook, Twitter, you must have had emails already just letting you know that they've updated their privacy policies, so they are beginning to become GDPR compliant. I'm going to take you through a very quick flow chart. This is how I've made sense of it, and hopefully this is going to be making sense for you. So to begin with, GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation. There are two areas that I think for you and I as a data business will have, and what I mean by data business is somebody who is in business that deals with or has other people's information. So if you're like me, you're a coach, then you've probably got coach records, you've got client records. If you've got a mailing list, you've got email addresses, maybe telephone numbers. So you've got information. And so there are two areas that are really stipulated that we have to look at as business owners ourselves within GDPR. The first is a data controller. Now, a data controller is someone who obviously controls the data. So if you're a business owner, if you're in control, or if you manage your list, if you manage your records, then you are a data controller, and it's your responsibility to control that data in a GDPR compliant manner. Equally, the other area that possibly this applies to with some of us is data processor. So if you've got a VA, if you've got somebody that manages your list, you have a responsibility as a data controller, as a manager, to manage them, to make sure that they are GDPR compliant as well. So stick with me. So I think for your and my business, there are kind of four areas that certainly I've been looking at. I'm sure there are more, but I'm just saying for this kind of business, the coach, training, speaking, consultancy type business. So the first area, of course, is the website. and just to make sure that somewhere on the website you've got something called a privacy policy. It needs to be available for everybody to see, and it needs to be GDPR compliant. So that is the website. And also when people sign up, if you have a data capturing system, i.e. you get people to sign up for your newsletter, for your freebie, your you know, whatever it is, a free course or a PDF or something, then that also needs to be linked to the privacy policy, and it needs to be GDPR compliant. And there is wording for this, there's legal wording for this, and that's why I worked with an attorney, with a lawyer, to make sure that the wording I got was compliant. And it sounds really technical. It just means that I bought a template that a lawyer had produced that was compliant, that they'd created, that it said what needed to be said, and then I just updated it with my information. And I think that's what most companies like ours are doing. So that's the website. The second area, I mentioned this already really, it's the database. So if you have a database of customers, so for example, coaching clients, if you have a database of subscribers to your mailing list, and so you need to have that securely saved. So if it's on a computer, it needs to be encrypted, and also you can only keep that material for a certain amount of time, just for a few years. So again, I heard from somebody a few weeks ago that said they had their mailing list and it was completely fine, and they'd had it since I think 2002. I can't remember the date. I think it was 2002, which is like 16 years. Guess what? GDPR, that's not compliant. You need to renew consent every between 2 and 4 years to make sure that the people still want you, number one, to be in touch with you, and number two, they're happy for you to save their data as well. So it's not enough to say, well, I've had a mailing list for years. You need to update it, you need to clean it, you need to refresh it, you need to re-engage it, and all that will make it GDPR compliant. The next area is the mailing list. This kind of is very closely aligned with the database, and this is very much for online marketers. I'm an online marketer, and I produce online courses, and some of those courses have their subscribers, have their members, so people that pay money for the courses, but equally people are in the marketing system that I send my newsletters and videos like this out to as well. And again, people need to consent that they want to hear from you to get your information. It needs to be specific. It can't just say, hey, let's keep in touch, I'll send you a newsletter and some free offers. It needs to be more specific. You need to own your territory. I know when I train with coaches and people in businesses, I talk about this territory, and the more specific you get with your territory, then the more likely it is you'll be seen as an expert, a go-to person, and that you'll probably be successful in that area. For example, mine is about speaking and presenting. That's kind of it. And so, yeah, that's the mailing list. And then finally, again, all these, you can see all these 4 areas linked very closely together. This is the storage. So the storage on your computer. Also, if you have external hard drives, or you save things to the cloud, they need to be encrypted. They need to be password protected. You need to be documenting how they are protected as well, so that if there is ever a breach, you can show how you protected those documents, that data, that you had it in place. Equally, hard copy. So for example, coaches, we need to keep our documentation for 7 years, just like accountants and financials. And yeah, so we need to keep those paper copies safe. If you are a paper copy person, I know some coaches do all the notes on the computer as well, or on the cloud. I still write with a pen and piece of paper when I'm doing coaching sessions, and I need to keep that in a filing system, in a secure place, and I need to have processes in place, if that makes sense. As I say, I'm a layman, and I'm just sharing this with you. This is how I've been working over the last couple of months with my business, just kind of reasonably gently spending a day here and a day there, trying to get this, moving towards this, and it's kind of spring cleaning the business, which is, as I say, I think that's the opportunity with this. And so, yeah, so the final thing I just want to share with you is really, for me, what I've taken as the opportunity from GDPR. The outcome is that you will have a systemized business. You'll have a business that has been refreshed, that's had a bit of a spring clean, that everything is kind of in the right place. And even though maybe at the beginning, if you haven't begun this GDPR process, I can tell you by the time you get through it towards the end, and I'm not quite there yet, I'm moving towards that part, it's like a weight is lifted, because not only are you becoming GDPR compliant, but you have spruced up your business. So, and just to say, I talked to somebody the other day and they said, oh, they got a huge list and they never take anybody off it. Well, number one, that ain't GDPR compliance. And number two, they're paying for that. So they're paying for an enormous amount of people that probably never open anything, never engage with anything, and probably never going to buy their services. So that doesn't sound like a great business model. So I think, as I say, GDPR is such an opportunity to spring clean, to refresh, and to re-engage. So that's my take on GDPR. I hope this has been useful for you. If you have any comments, please leave them in the box or in the comments box below. If you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, give me a thumbs up. Please click the like button, share this. And if you're not yet on my mailing list, if you're not yet in my tribe, please come join us. You'd be so welcome. Go to my website, mikeblissett.com, and there you will see there is a free training. So it's a video training with a workbook and PDF. It's called Speak Up, Stand Out, 5 Weird Ways to Begin Your Presentation. So go over to mikeblissett.com and subscribe to that. And it would be great to have you in my team, in my tribe. Until the next video, take care.